This is one of my favourite things about looking at sneakers for a sneaker channel is when this kind of thing comes around. Now it looks like a standalone shoe. It's got some interesting hits on it. The design and the detailing in there is pretty interesting. There's a few storylines in there about recycled materials and Nike trying to get down to a zero sort of footprint sneaker. But the main thing I like about this is actually personal. It's that I've done a bunch of videos that have kind of led up to this one, and I know in the future there'll be ones that sort of follow on from this one. And this shoe fits into a sort of sequence of sneakers, and I only know that in retrospect, looking back and thinking, oh, there was that sneaker, that sneaker, that sneaker that led into this sneaker. You don't know that that's happening when it's happening, and then you look back and you're like, that's pretty cool what Nike have done there. It's cool how they've led us through this step by step to go from a slightly obscure kind of run of sneakers and then right into the mainstream. I mean, the Air Force One is maybe the most popular of all the Nike silhouettes of all time. So it's a big deal when the Nike Air Force One starts to play around with these kind of materials and these kind of design elements. So I'm happy, I'm thrilled, I'm enjoying the fact that I'm going to be bringing this to you today, and we'll be taking a closer look at the Nike Air Force One Crater Foam Barely Volt. This is the Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel, Tokyo Bara 23 Sneaker Channel des. 毎日アップするので毎日見てください. Every single day from Tokyo, Japan, I bring you content about upcoming sneaker releases, sneaker news, and sneaker reviews. And today we're breaking a run of 4 days when we had Jordans, 3 Jordan 1s and a Jordan 13. 4 days in a row doing those sneakers. 3 of them were lucky greens. I don't know if that's just by chance or by design. And the other one was that white metallic gold mids. So I had a Jordan 1 low, a Jordan 1 mid, Jordan 1 high, and a Jordan 13. So a very big mix of Jordans over the last 4 days, but that was just by chance. And then today along came this sneaker and I was like, that's interesting, definitely having a look at that. And there's been a couple of other colorways. There's a black version as well out there and stuff, but I'm focused in on this one, the Barely Volt, which is, it's got enough going on in there that it caught my eye, and I was like, you know what, that's a sneaker that I want to bring to the channel. And actually I have a question for you guys out there that I really want you to answer. I mean, like, often you'll hear YouTubers talk about, hit me up with a comment down below, and I say it in my videos too, and I used to have a little thing that runs across the screen that says comment, that I want you guys to drop a comment, but particularly today I actually do have a question I don't know the answer to. I'll give you my perspective on it, but I'd really like to hear from you guys if your answer is the same or if you have a different take on this part of the shoe. And then also, of course, the different hits in the shoe. And like I said, there's a bunch of shoes that have led up to this. Now what I'm thinking about is this right here. These are the Space Hippies. Probably I'll put up the thumbnail for the Space Hippies so you can see the 1, 2s and 3s all on one sort of picture behind me here. And that's kind of the big recyclable shoe from the Nike line. Of course, over at Adidas they have the 100% recyclable Futurecraft, which is just incredible. But what's leading the way over at Nike is those Space Hippies, and you maybe have seen them already. And that's where this shoe sort of has its genesis, where it all started from for this shoe. And then after that, for me, not for just a Nike, this isn't about a Nike history lesson here, this is just personally my take on it. The next thing after that was the Vapormax 2020s that came out, and they've got a bunch of recyclable materials in them, and again that crater foam and that offcuts of rubber that goes into the outsole and the midsole and stuff like that was very evident on those Vapormax 2020s. And then the next in the line for me was the recycled canvas pack of 5 silhouettes, 6 different colorways, and again it's all about that recycle. Again in that pack you can see that crater foam, and then today we get to this. So when I said earlier in this video when I was talking about these things lining up, I didn't do those 3 videos previously thinking that they were all connected and that they'd go in a certain direction, get to Air Force Ones, but they did. In retrospect, looking back, that's where we are. And today we get to that point where it's the Air Force One that's in the spotlight, and I'll be taking you through all those recycled details on there, and of course asking that question and looking at the other points in the shoe that aren't to do with recycling. So first things first, let me ask that question that I really want you to know, and I'm talking about the toe box. This is the main design feature on this shoe. It might not be the main technology feature, it might not be the main structural feature, it might not even be the main colorway feature on the shoe, but the design feature in this shoe, the main thing going on there is this toe box here. Now I have my opinion about what's going on that toe box there, but you guys might have a difference of opinion. So I'm going to tell you what I think is happening. I'm going to tell you 2 alternatives to that might be happening that I might be wrong about. And I want you to tell me in the comments down below which one you think it is, And if you have a fourth or a fifth alternative to what I'm coming out with, definitely let us know in the comments down below. So what I think is going on here, we've got a good picture here, I hope, on the green screen showing you that toe box there. Now what I think is going on here is you've got a double layered toe box. Now that's happened a lot in shoes recently, especially when the top layer has been peel backable and to reveal something below. And I always talk about the clot Air Jordan 1 mids, which is a beautiful shoe that you could peel away what was already a beautiful upper on it to reveal gold below. But that's not what I'm talking about. I don't think this is peel awayable, but I do think it's a double layered upper on the front of this guy here. So I think the color stuff that's underneath that, all that patchwork of different segments on there, is leather, and it's got the print design on it, and then on top of that you've got what I'm calling a shroud, a sort of semi-translucent shield that goes over the top of it, so it's a two-layered effect. Now the alternative to that, it might be a one-layered effect, and all that colour and design is actually in that semi-translucent material. So instead of it being the semi-translucent material looking through to the colours below, it's actually printed on the semi-translucent material that's on there. And then the third option is that, again, it's that double layer with the shroud on top in semi-translucence, and below that you've got the colours, but instead of it being printed on the leather, it's actually segmented different parts of the leather that are sort of sewn together or knitted together in some way. Now I'm going for number one. I think this is two layers of upper, the outer layer is semi-translucent white, and then that looks through to a lower layer in leather with the print on it. Definitely let me know in the comments down below if you A, know what's going on for sure and you can tell us all, or B, have a difference of opinion and think, actually, you know what's going on there is this, because I'd love to hear about that. But that's the main design feature on the toe, on the shoe. To be honest, it doesn't really have much to do with the actual name of the shoe, which is the Barely Volt. So we get to the Barely Volt stuff now, and then we'll come to the CRATER foam stuff later. So moving back from that toe box, we get to the swoosh on the side of these guys, which is where your Barely Volt comes in. And by Barely Volt, what they mean is a sort of an opaque or a pastel sort of yellow on there instead of a sort of bright, vibrant sort of Volt colour on there. And you can see that in the swoosh, which leads around to the back of the shoe, to the heel branding on the back, also in that pastel sort of Volt colour. But the branding on the back with that yellow, that Volt on there, it has the black writing on the top of it. And it looks okay to me. It kind of doesn't quite fit the rest of the narrative of the shoe, especially the black writing is very powerful and strong, whereas the rest of the shoe is sort of all subdued Volt, and then that sort of semi-translucent white of the toe box. It doesn't really fit with the boldness of the black branding on the back. And then if you go up to the tongues, another sort of addition on that is that they've kept that bold black branding up there where it says Nike Air Force 1, but instead of having it on the Volt, which would have made sense, they've got it just straight up on white up there on the tongue, which is kind of an odd choice. I would have thought they'd gone with the same branding at the back of the shoe as the front of the shoe, but still, that's what they went with. And then below that, one of the interesting features on here is that there's 5 different places where they're using oversized stitching on the shoe, and you can kind of see it running from front to back, and hopefully I'm doing a good job of sort of zooming in on the midfoot or transitioning sort of from front to back of the shoe, so you can see the 4 lateral side places where the oversized stitching occurs throughout the sides of the shoe. And then on the back again, below that sort of, what was it called, Barely Volt branding, you can see where the sort of lateral and the medial side are tied together. It's done so with that big sort of oversized stitching on the back as well. So there's 5 different places that happens, but there are other places on the shoe where the stitches and it's just in a sort of standard intact kind of way, especially on the lacing system, and also on that standard midsole that you get with Air Force 1s, where the stitching runs around the sort of top line of that midsole, holding the midsole to the upper. That's in standard sort of stitching. Speaking of the midsole, that's the second last place that we need to go on these shoes, because the midsole really shows you that CRATER foam that we're talking about. And what we're talking about with CRATER foam is it's literally recycled rubber that was, you know, another shoe was made or another product at Nike was made, and the offcuts, instead of just chucking them away and throwing them away, they've actually recycled them. And it's not just a design thing. Hopefully I'm zooming in on it really clearly here to give you guys an idea of the actual texture and the sort of 3D nature of that CRATER foam that goes into making the midsole and the outsole on these guys. So it isn't just for show, it isn't for design, it's actually random. No two pairs will be the same because of this, that it is actually offcuts of recycled rubber that's going into that midsole and that outsole. And speaking of the midsole and the outsole, an interesting effect that I hadn't seen before in shoes is that they've gone with the two kind of main variants that you get with the CRATER foam, one light and one dark, but instead of sort of cutting down the middle or something like that, what they've done is the toe and the heel in the darker sort of CRATER foam, and then the center area in the lighter sort of CRATER foam. So then when we flip them upside down and actually have a look at the outsole, you can see that dual effect between the front and the back ends of the shoe and then the middle of the shoe. And again, it's got that feel of texture and CRATER foaminess to it. So then flipping back out, let's have a look at the whole shoe again to finish off the video. It's a bit of a strange one, but it's almost like three different shoes. You've got that toe box in one kind of design direction there, and then you've got the back half of the shoe. It's actually quite very plain, and then the bottom half of the shoe and the sort of CRATER foam, high technology, recycled materials going on there. So it's like three different shoes, and to be honest, to be very frank, full disclosure and all that, I don't think they've knitted them to get together very well. I don't think there's enough narrative between the three different parts of the shoe to make it make sense. So for me, it's a bit of a sort of an odd one, but still it's a cool sort of step forward as far as recycling goes, and it's an Air Force One, and Air Force Ones pretty much always do well. So an interesting shoe, and like I said, there's other colorways that go along with it, a black version as well. But for today, what I want to do was have a look at that Barely Volt for you guys. Hope you appreciate that. Hope you appreciate the content. Hope you appreciate not being on Jordans. I think 4 days of Jordans was enough, and coming back to Air Force Ones is a good place to start. And then we'll be back again tomorrow. So I'm going to do what I do at the end of every single video, which is just remind you that I do this every single day, and that means that you are guaranteed to see me tomorrow.